Hey guys, Shot Got Picks here. Hope everyone's doing well, having a great week. We're here to be breaking down UFC Fight Night, Burns versus Brady. We're going to be giving a full breakdown analysis on each fight in the card. Make sure to catch my YouTube shorts if you want to get my best bets for each fight. Subscribe so you don't miss out on those. Other than that, let's get right into it. Starting with the first fight in the card, we got Zygimantas, Ramaska versus Nathan Fletcher. Ramaska comes into this 9-2, 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He opens up as a plus 120 dog, 27 years old, 5'11", 71-inch reach. Fletcher's 8-1, 4-1 in his last 4. Opens up as a negative 145 favorite. 26 years old, 5'7", so he's 4 inches shorter. 70-inch reach, so he has a 1-inch disadvantage on the reach. I'm going with Zygimantas here. I think Fletcher puts himself in danger too often. Fletcher's more of a bantamweight and he's fighting in featherweight. Meanwhile, Ramaska's fought in lightweight prior. So, we have one guy going up and another guy going down in weight. Ramaska's 4 inches taller and has a 1-inch reach advantage, and I think that will be very big here. Fletcher just lost to Khan Ofli, and that's the guy we just saw lose for the tough championship. Ofli was able to take him down literally whenever he wanted to. He wasn't moving his head much. Nathan did show some of his grappling abilities, being able to scramble out of the position and even attempt some submissions. But I think this fight will play on the feet. And given how aggressive Ramastas is, I figure this will be a long day for Fletcher. But there is a world where he lands a big one and puts Ramastas down. Ramaska is very, very, very aggressive. All 9 of his wins are by finish, and I think Ramaska is a lot better on the feet than Fletcher. He uses his length very good and uses some good combos. I think he goes for big bombs a little too often and throws wild shots. He also throws kicks to end his combos, and I like that a lot about him. But like any tall fighter, he does leave his chin in the air. He got absolutely dropped by Usmanov. He just sometimes gets too crazy in there. Getting dropped by Usmanov is very concerning, to be honest. Usmanov is 1-3 in his last 4 fights. So it's, something to note. But overall, he has some good Muay Thai, good kicks, crisp jab. And when he throws, he lands big bombs. I think his striking will be better in this one. I think he'll be able to land one of those big strikes and possibly even drop Fletcher here. But I think Fletcher is durable. So ultimately, I got Ramaska by decision. This one's very tough here. This one's really tough here. I think this is ultimately a dog or pass here. But overall, I think Ramaska is also just better. So just give me the plus money odds. He's taller, he's lengthier, he's powerful, he's aggressive. I wouldn't be surprised if he drops him, but like I said, I got Ramaska by decision. Up next on the card, we got André Petroski versus Dylan Budka. Petroski comes into this 11-3, 3-2 in his last 5. Opens up as a negative 275 favorite, 33 years old, 6'0", 73-inch reach. Meanwhile, Dylan Budka, 7-3, 3-2 in his last 5, opens up as a plus 230 underdog. 24 years old, 6'0", 75-inch reach, so he does have a 2-inch reach advantage. This matchup is pretty much between two guys who are very similar, but Petroski's better where it really counts. They're both not really impressive at all. Both of these guys are grapplers who like to strike, and they've got similar flaws. Bad cardio, stiff on the feet, but Budka is less of a refined version of Petroski. Budka's striking isn't bad, but he has no power and doesn't know what to do when he's on the back foot. He looked garbage in his last performance, let's be honest, and that's making his debut. Petroski is wild for sure, but he hits hard and throws with aggression, even when his technique is not the best. Plus, he's more experienced coming into this. Where Petroski is the best is in the grappling department. Budka is awful off of his back. While his takedown defense is a little bit decent, Petroski should be able to get him down here and dominate him on the mat. Budka's submission defense also isn't that great, and Petroski's jiu-jitsu is definitely a level above his. Even if Petroski gasses out later in the fight, Budka will probably slow down first, giving Petroski the edge there. Some things to note here are that Petroski loses as an underdog and wins as a favorite. Against Mearshart and Frem, he was the favorite and won. Against Malkoun and Pereira, he was the underdog and lost. Budka just lost as a favorite, but he won the 2 fights before that as a plus 125 dog and a plus 300 dog. Also, Petroski opened up as low as negative 275, shot up to negative 350, and now he's back to negative 275. I think that's very interesting, especially because both these fighters are very hard to back with your money. I'm picking Petroski to get a 3rd-round submission here in a fight where both of these guys are going to be exhausted by the end, but I'll be avoiding this fight as a bettor. Up next on the card, we got Jaqueline Amorim versus Vanessa Demopoulos. Amorim comes into this fight 8-1, 4-1 in her last 5 fights. She's a big, heavy underdog at negative 350. She's 29 years old, 5'3", 68-inch reach advantage. Vanessa Demopoulos is 11-5, 4-1 in her last 5 fights. Plus 275 dog, 35 years old, 5'2", 59.5-inch reach. So we're talking about an 8.5-inch reach advantage, and she's going to be 6 years younger. We're talking about Amorim, of course. It's always scary when Vanessa Demopoulos is a massive underdog because somehow she's always finding a way to sneak in a win. She should honestly be 2-5 in UFC, but thanks to some questionable judging, she's sitting at 5-2. I'm not too worried about that here, though, because Amorim is going to dominate her. Demopoulos has terrible takedown defense, and she prefers to play off of her back, which is going to be a nightmare against Amorim. Amorim isn't just a wrestler who will lay on top of you for control. She's constantly looking to do damage with ground and pound and hunt for submissions. Her jiu-jitsu is elite, and if Demopoulos gives up a takedown, I don't see how she survives without getting stuck in a bad position. Demopoulos' striking isn't much better. She's tough and aggressive, but she eats punches with her face, and Amorim's got some significant reach and power advantage here. We're talking about an 8.5-inch reach advantage from somebody who's only 1 inch taller than Demopoulos. Vanessa's best shot is to turn this into a messy brawl, but even then, I think Amorim's power will be way too much for her. I doubt Amorim gets the finish here, but I see her taking a clear decision win. It might be a sweat going into the judges against Demopoulos. She has the reverse Angela Hill effect. They love Vanessa for some reason, but there's just no way you can go with Vanessa here. Give me Amorim by decision. Up next on the card, we got Gabriel Santos versus Yizha. Gabriel Santos comes into this fight 10-2, 3-2 in his last 5 fights. He opens up as a negative 230 favorite, 27 years old, 5'9", 70-inch reach. Yizha is 25-4, 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He opens up as a plus 190 dog, 27 years old, 5'7", 71-inch reach. So he is 2 inches shorter, but he does have a 1-inch reach advantage here. This is a tough one. I'm leaning towards Yizha, though, by decision. I've gone back and forth on this fight, but now that I've settled on Yizha, I feel pretty confident in this pick. Don't get me wrong, Santos is a talented fighter and a great athlete, but he has some big flaws, especially in his defense and his fight IQ. Yizha isn't perfect either, but for a fighter coming from a Chinese regional scene, he's actually pretty solid. He's well-rounded, can strike decently, and most importantly, he knows how to stick to a game plan, even if his skill set isn't the most polished. On the feet, this fight is closer than people think. Yizha's boxing is solid, and he's got some good timing on his strikes. He doesn't always let his hands go as much as I'd like, but when he does, he's quick, and his defense is really tight. Santos, on the other hand, is all pressure and aggression, but he's wild and leaves himself open. He doesn't think much about his striking, just barrels forward and throws bombs. His power is legit, but it's predictable, and he loves spinning techniques that leave him wide open. The real interesting part of this fight is the grappling. Santos is pretty bad off of his back, and Yizha can wrestle. Yizha's takedown attempts aren't the cleanest, but Santos has a habit of conceding takedowns to play guard, which could work in Yizha's favor. Santos likes to go for crazy submissions from his back, but he rarely finishes them, and Yizha's grappling is solid enough to avoid getting caught. The cardio battle is going to be key here. Santos slows down significantly as the fight goes on, especially if there's grappling involved, whereas Yizha can keep a high pace for the full 15 minutes. It's not the most confident pick since Chinese fighters have a spotty track record against international competition, but I think Yizha grinds this one out and gets the decision win here. I think this is a dog or pass position here. It's very interesting, though, because Santos went up to negative 305 on some books and went back down to negative 260. I don't see why this line is getting so wide. I can't get behind it. So give me the dog here. I think the over 2.5 rounds is a solid play here. Like I said, I'm not the most confident here, but I'm taking the dog here. Up next on the card, we got André Lima versus Felipe dos Santos. Lima comes into this 9-0. He opens up as a negative 130 favorite. He's 25 years old, 5'7", 67.5-inch reach. Dos Santos is 8-1, 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Opens up as a plus 110 dog, 23 years old, 5'7", 70-inch reach. So they're both opening up at pick'em odds. They're both young. They're both 5'7", and Dos Santos does have a 2.5-inch reach. This is honestly one of the best matchups on the card, and it can easily end up being the fight of the night. I know a lot of people don't love Lima, and a lot of fans are high on Francisco dos Santos, but I'm taking Lima by decision here. I think this is going to be a clear win for him. First off, dos Santos doesn't really wrestle, and that already sets up this matchup in favor for Lima. Dos Santos might try to shoot for a takedown or two, but wrestling just isn't his game. Even if he does get Lima to the ground, his control isn't great, and we've seen in his past fights that he struggles to maintain it, so I'm not worried about Lima in that department at all. Now, on the feet, I don't think this fight is close. Lima is by far the more technical striker here. He's not flashy, but he's incredibly precise, and he can fight moving forwards and backwards, which is super impressive. He's got power too, especially for a flyweight, and he's constantly making reads during the fight. Dos Santos is the total opposite. He's more of a wild brawler, throws everything at you, but his defense is basically non-existent. Dos Santos' main facet is probably his constant pressure. It makes him very difficult to deal with, but that wild brawling style comes with risks, and I don't see him being able to catch Lima cleanly enough to make it matter. I think he'll be chasing Lima all night, and Lima's going to be picking him apart with counters and leg kicks. The last time I watched Lima fight against Severino, he was reading his every move like a book. He was fighting off the back foot, stayed patient, and countered beautifully. I expect this fight to look very similarly. Even though Dos Santos will land some shots, his lack of defense and reckless approach are going to make it tough for him to get the upper hand here. I'm predicting a decision win for Lima in what should be a very, very fun fight to watch. The public seems to agree with me as the two opened up at Pick'ems, and now Lima is at negative 175. I see him getting more expensive as we get closer to fight night, so I would add him to the bet slips now. Give me Lima by decision. Up next on the card, we got Isaac Dulgarian versus Brendon Marotte. I'm not even going to read their stats here. At negative 3,000 favorite, there's really no point. This fight is a mismatch designed to give Dulgarian an easy win after his controversial last outing. Although he gassed out badly in his previous fight, Dulgarian dominated the first 2 rounds. He displayed elite grappling and athleticism. His pace was relentless, and while his cardio eventually disappeared, his grappling was world class for the first 10 minutes. Marotte simply is just not UFC level competition. He's just not. He does not possess the skills to be trouble for Dulgarian at all. Dulgarian's wrestling and grappling are amongst one of the best in the division, and I expect him to overwhelm Marotte on the ground game very, very quickly. Dulgarian's explosiveness and power should lead him to an early finish here, either via ground and pound or submission. Even if the fight stays standing, Dulgarian has enough power to knock this guy out. Give me Dulgarian, round 1 knockout. Under 1.5 rounds is at negative 325. Take it. It's very hard to extract value from this fight. But yeah, give me Dulgarian round 1 knockout. Up next on the card, we got Rongzhu versus Chris Padilla. Rongzhu comes into this fight 25-5, 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Negative 250 favorite, 24 years old, 5'9", 72.5-inch reach. Chris Padilla is 14-6, 4-1 in his last 5. He opens up as a plus 200 underdog, 28 years old, 5'9", 74-inch reach. So he does have a 1.5-inch reach. Although Padilla had a really impressive debut where he pulled off that upset against Yanal, I don't believe he can be able to replicate that performance here. While Rongzhu has his flaws, he's improved a lot since his previous UFC stint. And I don't see Padilla being able to expose those flaws here. Rongzhu's main issue is his defense. He's very hittable and he's always willing to engage. However, I think Padilla lacks the power and the aggression that it will take to capitalize on this. Rongzhu's leg kicks and boxing will give Padilla a lot of trouble, especially since Padilla doesn't check kicks at all, and he struggles when forced to fight off his back foot. Rongzhu has shown us some sharp boxing recently, using pressure and combinations. Although Padilla has decent striking and a solid chin, I don't think he'll be able to handle Rongzhu's aggression, especially since Padilla has faded before going into the 3rd round. Rongzhu's high pace and cardio will overwhelm Padilla, which I think will lead to a late stoppage in the 3rd round. Padilla does have wrestling, but I don't find it really all that impressive. He did submit Yanal, but Yanal has some poor ground game. But even then, Yanal managed to get back up on his feet multiple times. Rongzhu's takedown defense is much better, and I don't see Padilla having the control to keep Rongzhu down. This fight will likely stay standing up, which I think Rongzhu's pressure and volume will wear Padilla down. I think he's made clear improvements since his last time in the UFC. Ultimately, give me Rongzhu round 3 knockout. For the next fight in the card, we got Trevor versus Yanal Ashmouz. Pete comes into this 9-2. 3-2 in his last 5 fights. They're both at pick 'em odds. He's 29 years old, 5'9", 70-inch reach. Ashmouz comes in 7-1, 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Pick 'em odds, 29 years old, 5'9", 68-inch reach, so a 2-inch disadvantage. This fight should be an entertaining brawl between 2 limited but aggressive fighters. While both guys aren't the most technical, they're willing to throw down and make it a gritty affair. For Peak, this seems like a good matchup for him stylistically. Peak isn't a great striker technically, but he's insanely aggressive and hits very hard. His losses have come against more skilled strikers who were able to mix in leg kicks and grappling, like Marotte and Charlie Campbell. In those fights, Peak was outclassed in both striking, and overall fight IQ. Ashmouz may have slightly better striking technique, but I think he's also quite limited. He throws the occasional head and leg kicks, but there's little variety in his game plan. He throws very low volume. He doesn't mix up his strikes all that well. He also primarily relies on single power shots without really setting them up, which I think makes him less dangerous as he seems to be. The knockout win Ashmouz scored against Patterson is a bit overrated. He caught Patterson with a perfect strike while Patterson was off balance from a throwing kick, a scenario that I doubt will happen again. Both fighters are hittable and durable, which means this will most likely be a slugfest. I think since Peak is more relentless, applies more pressure, and is more aggressive, I think that he'll be able to land on Ashmouz more easily. And this will only go up the more confident he gets. Pressure is Peak's biggest strength, in my opinion. He makes his opponents work for every moment. He's forced better fighters like Chepe and Campbell to deal with constant forward movement. With Ashmouz, since he's predictable, I don't think he'll be able to handle that well here. While this will likely be an ugly back and forth fight, Peak's style of walking forward and forcing an aggressive high-paced fight should give him the edge here. It's a fight that could easily go either way since both are lower level skilled fighters. Ultimately, I'm going with Peak by decision. I wouldn't be surprised if he knocks him out. I also wouldn't be surprised if he get knocked out himself. This is a tough one to predict. They're pick-em odds for a reason. But give me Peak by decision. Up next on the card, we got Kyle Nelson versus Steve Garcia. Kyle Nelson comes into the 16-5, 3-1-1 in his last 5 fights. He's 33 years old, 5'11", 71-inch reach. Steve Garcia is 4-1 in his last 5 fights, 16-5 overall. He's 32 years old, 6'0", with a 73-inch reach, so he does have a 2-inch reach advantage. I think this fight will be very exciting to watch and should most likely stay on the feet the entire time. And because of that, I'm going with Steve Garcia. I think his stand-up game is very, very good. When you look at his resume, his last 4 wins have come by knockout. Let's go through them together. 4 fights ago, as a plus 275 underdog, he fought Chase Hooper and knocked him down 4 times. 4 times in total before the referee stepped in. 3 fights ago, as a plus 200 dog, he fought Nerdembeke, who dropped Garcia in the first round. Then Nerdembeke shows bad IQ while on top. He gets on top of him while he dropped him. Makes no sense to me, really. Towards the end of the round, Garcia wobbles Nerdembeke bad before the bell rings. Not long after the round 2 starts, he lands a beautiful uppercut to the liver and drops him to end the fight. 2 fights ago, he was a plus 500 dog at close. He fought Melquizael Costa, who wrestle-fucked him for the entire first round. And in the second round, as soon as Garcia scrambles and gets up, the first 2 punches he lands drops Costa, and then he wins by knockout. He faces a striker finally, and then he starched him too. I will not be going against Garcia anymore. This man is nicknamed the Mean Machine for a reason. When he lands, he usually drops his opponents. His stock was really, really bad after his loss against Mahashate, but ever since then, this man has been dropping everyone. Kyle Nelson has gone to the judges before, against Blake Bilder, against Fernando Padilla, both of which I think Garcia would absolutely smoke and drop. He knocked out Aljo in his last fight, but Aljo is known for leaving his chin wide open. If he can drop Chase Hooper 4 different times, like, Chase Hooper is not a bum. Chase Hooper is the guy who dropped Slava, and Slava just took over 100 punches from Yontop the other day. I figure Steve Garcia gets this done. At negative 180, add him to your slips now. Add him to your slips now. He opened up at negative 200. He's gone down. He will get more expensive, in my opinion, by fight night. I think he's going to knock out Nelson. But maybe it goes to decision. At negative 180, take it straight and be confident. Plus, he's taller and he has a reach advantage here. Ultimately, give me Garcia by round 2 knockout, maybe even round 1. Up next on the card, we got Jéssica Andrade versus Natália Silva. This is the co-main event. Andrade comes into this fight 26-12, 2-3 in her last 5 fights. She's a plus 215 dog, 32 years old, 5'1", 62-inch reach. Natália Silva is 17-5-1. She's 5-0 in her last 5 fights. Negative 270 favorite, 27 years old, 5'4", 65-inch reach. So she's 3 inches taller, 3 inches in reach advantage. This fight doesn't seem competitive to me at all. While Andrade is riding a 2-fight win streak, I believe she's past her prime. Her physical strength and power are still present, but her predictable blitz-style offense has become easy to counter. Andrade relies heavily on her strength to rush into exchanges and throw power shots, but her defense has gotten sloppy, and her recent fights have highlighted this. Blanchfield showed little respect for Andrade's striking, outstriking her in the pocket. Yan Xiaonan knocked her out for walking into an exchange with her chin high, and Dern was outstriking Andrade. Even in the fight against Marina Rodriguez, Andrade's flaws were evident, losing most of the striking exchanges. Marina lost because of poor fight IQ, but she was outpointing Andrade with ease for most of the fight. Marina's lack of power allowed Andrade to power forward recklessly, but that won't be the case against Silva. Silva, in my opinion, is one of the best strikers in her division, and possibly in all of WMMA. She has a Taekwondo base and utilizes it exceptionally well, throwing kicks with little telegraph to all parts of the body. Her boxing is just as sharp, and her speed translates well into her striking combinations. Silva's power is another key factor. She's hurt every opponent she's faced, and I don't think Andrade will be an exception. Andrade's aggression and flawed defense will play right into Silva's hands. Silva's diverse striking arsenal, speed, and head kicks will be a huge factor in this fight. Andrade, being shorter, is even more vulnerable to the head kicks. With her impeccable timing and powerful spinning back kicks, I predict Silva will catch Andrade early in the fight, leading to a first-round knockout. Andrade's tendencies to blitz in recklessly with little head movement will be her downfall here, and Silva's head kicks will be the perfect counter. Give me Silva round 1 knockout. Up next on the card, we got Gilbert Burns versus Sean Brady. Gilbert Burns comes into this 22-7. He's 2-3 in his last 5 fights. He opens up as a plus 145 dog, 38 years old, 5'10", 71-inch reach. Sean Brady is 16-1, 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He opened up as a negative 175 favorite, 31 years old, 5'10", 72.5-inch reach. This fight is much closer than some people think, but giving Brady the edge everywhere over Burns, in my opinion, is silly. Brady has some solid skills, but his resume does not stand out at all. He hasn't beaten any top-tier opponents yet. Belal Muhammad completely outclassed him in their first fight, making it look easy. Meanwhile, Burns, although he lost to Muhammad, he was dealing with an injury, and while he wasn't winning, it wasn't a blowout either. Burns was also holding his own against Jack Della Maddalena until he got caught with a knee, showcasing that he's still dangerous even at this stage of his career. In the striking department, Burns has a clear edge. He possesses legitimate knockout power, which Brady hasn't shown anything of the sort. While Brady might have a slight advantage in grappling, Burns is no slouch in that department either. Burns is a world-class BJJ black belt and has proven his submission skills against elite competition. I don't think Brady will be able to submit Burns, and it's unlikely that the grappling will be a deciding factor here. The real question is who shoots first, and this could go either way. Both fighters are capable of mixing up their striking and grappling, but Burns' power is the biggest X factor in this fight. Brady's hype feels a bit overblown at the moment, especially considering that he hasn't had a defining win against any elite opponent. Burns, while he's 38, and possibly in decline, still has the experience and skill set to pull off a big win here. He's shown throughout his career that he can deliver in tough moments. This might be one of those times. Overall, this feels like a fight where Burns can capitalize on Brady's defensive lapses and land something significant in the later rounds. I expect Burns to catch Brady with a powerful shot in the second or third round, leading to a knockout. If Belal Muhammad, who doesn't knock anybody out, if he can knock out Sean Brady, I believe Burns could do it too. While it's a close fight, I see Burns as the better overall fighter, especially if people keep on betting on Brady, creating more value for Burns. Give me that all the way. Give me Gilbert Burns, round 3 knockout. Take it to the bank. That's it for us here. Those are my breakdowns for the entire card. Do let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? As always, thanks for watching, and please like and subscribe, as these videos do take some time to make. If they happen to help you out, it would be a great way to show some support. I love it when people tell me that they're making money off my picks. Again, thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next video. Stay up.